a much more interactive website for the future, where people can use our website to actually access services. And that is probably another reason why at the moment the more passive website we have is experiencing a drop in use, because today people expect to be able to do business with an organisation via the website, and that's where we're heading in our as part of our business transformation strategy.
Which is precisely why I asked the questions, because the website use has dropped off by about 12 or 13%. And the other main methods of contacting us have also dropped off by about 17% if you accumulate them. I don't know whether they're all on a par, would be hard to tell. But it does seem that there's something going on with that data.
Yeah.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Water supply. Inglewood Water Supply, we've had a very difficult year, and I see here that we had less than 46% were satisfied with the service. Then I look over on the options side of it, and it says that no action will be taken. Can I have a comment on that? Because Inglewood has had a very difficult time with water supply.
Through you, Mr Chairman, I'll pass to Mr David Lang to help to try to answer that question.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, we're aware of the issues with the taste and water quality issues at Inglewood. The reason behind the comment of no action, that's no further additional action beyond what's already planned through our current renewals programs. So there is action being taken. This recommendation is for no further action.
Okay.
Councillor Weaver.
Yeah, Liam, I noticed at the bottom of page 6 that there's a trend, an improving trend over the last 3 years for respondents being satisfied with how rates are spent in New Plymouth District. Could that be a contributor to the feedback we're getting from people in terms of less contact over various issues?
84%.
Well, through you, Mr Chairman, it could be construed that way, that yeah, the response rates, the satisfaction rates are increasing, and therefore yeah, we get less hits on our various forms of communication, so it could be construed that way.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mr Chairman, on again, sorry, I haven't got a page number, 8, 9, 10 most probably, of the options. Again, I'm looking at the options, and I'm looking at the quality and safety of footpaths, and it talks about construction of new footpaths. It's further down in the flood protection, it talks about increasing the frequency of curb and channel sweeping and sump cleaning. Are those items intended to be reinstated in the next year? Have they already been put into our budget for 16-17, or is it that we are looking at it further out than that? And then I've got a second question, but I'd just like to know where in the budget those sit, because it's quite important.
Yep. I think Mr Langford maybe...
Through you, Mr Chair, Mr Langford might be able to answer that.
Mr Langford.
Through you, Chair, each of these options put forward are just options at this stage. So further investigation needs to be done to actually define what, say, the increased level of service for curb and channel sweeping would be. That would, if it was going to become part of our budget, would feature in the next LTP. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Get a secondary.
Just one more on the Cavett Brewster Art Gallery. It again says that they've picked up on some of the comments that have made. I just want to know, when will we begin to see the changes in those programs and that communication change? Is it planned again for sooner rather than later?
I'll get Ms Teresa Turner to answer that question.
Through the Chair, if I may, I don't have an exact timeline about when those improvements will be in place, I think, but suffice to say, in response to this feedback, we are already working internally with staff, and particularly working with the Lenlai Committee to actually look at some of the issues around the plan programme. So it will happen, but it won't happen overnight, if I dare quote that.
Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Councillor Handley, you had a question?
I think, Mr Chairman, yes I did. Mr Hodgetts, this again might be one for your engineer. I'm looking at curbside rubbish and recyclables collection. Clifton residents are significantly less satisfied, and I know I've had contact from several ratepayers in Clifton who previously had their recycling rubbish collected, but were not rated for it, so therefore don't have the service anymore. But I understand that we're looking perhaps at expanding the collection to some residents that previously had that service. I just wondered where would that look like?
The decision to expand the collection service will form part of the review of the waste management minimisation plan, which is that process is about to commence, yes. And then any expansion again would form part of the next LTP cycle.
No further questions of council officers. Is someone prepared to move A1? Councillor Pearce. Councillor Dienhoven. It is open for debate, discussion. There being none, I'm now going to put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, it is carried. I did see a wink there, Councillor Allen. You're a bit slow.
It's the bottom of page 6, which is so good.
Righto. A2, the March 2016 performance review, which is a... Are there any questions of clarification?
Yeah.
Here are Councillor Dienhoven.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. On page 1 of the report, it talks about the 3.7 million forecast surplus, i.e. unspent money at the end of the year. Could I get an answer to the question of what projects are we behind on, and what projects should we have usefully done that are going to be pushed out into the future?
Thank you, Mr Bird.
Through you, Mr Chair, it's not about projects being pushed out or delayed. This is savings as a result of vacancy management personnel savings, interest cost savings, which may actually relate to some capital projects. They are the key drivers of that surplus, not specific projects being pushed out.
I understand that, and obviously when we save, we do well. But we have growing concern in the community, I think, about the ability to respond. And we're seeing, I'll put the question another way, what things do you think we could do better in utilising money so that we actually have a budget that at the beginning of the year we can be confident will be spent to achieve all the aims that we're going?
I think we have, through you, Mr Chair, been achieving the things that we have aimed for. The issue is that we have done that more effectively and efficiently. A key driver of those savings, in round numbers $2 million, is around salary and wages, where we've been more effective and efficient in terms of delivering those services.
Okay, thank you.
No further. Councillor Handley.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm looking at page, well again it's not, it's under regulatory services, and it's looking at use of car parks. The level of services maximising use of on-street.
What page were you on, Councillor Handley?
It should be on...
Sorry?
Yeah.
I found it tucked away. And it's the second row. And the target performance is 85% of average rate of occupation, and given all the discussion we've had recently about car parks and the need to encourage improved car parking, I see that we only have a 51% average rate of occupation so far, and I'd like some explanation as to what all that means.
So, Mr Chairman, first of all, the target performance was set before we had our current parking system in place. So it was set before we had access to reliable data on the actual occupancy, so it was an estimate only. And now that we have the computerised parking system with real-time data on actual occupancy, we find that our estimate was optimistic. And so the point is the occupancy is lower than anticipated, although we'll find also there are areas where occupancy is very high and areas where occupancy is low. So what we'll do a report on the real spectrum of use of our various parks.
So the 51%, if I understand it correctly, it's that parks that are monitored or have pay-as-you-go are used on average 51% of the available time. Is that what it says?
Correct. On average. But there are times when of peak demand, Mr. Chairman, where clearly it's hard to find an empty car park in the high demand areas, and times when they're not. So we have to give context to that measure.
Councillor Chong.
Yeah, secondary to that question, that's 51% of the allocated times of when they charge. Have you got an occupancy rate of when they not charge? The reason being is because obviously when it comes 5 o'clock you can't get a park in town because obviously people don't pay for them. So have we got that comparison?
Mr. Chairman, as I understand it, the system knows when there is a car in the car park, whether it's at a time when the car park is being paid for or not.
Okay, secondary. So can we in the future separate that to find out if the car parks are being used more when it's free?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have the ability to define times of day and levels of occupancy. So the good thing with our new system is we have a much richer set of real data with which to plan the management of our parking.
It's great. I think it would be good to separate that next time we have a report.
Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a question about probably our target performance. Is that while our aim is to 85% now, is it a possibility that we may be slightly optimistic and a maximum use of a car park may be closer to 50, 60? Because it was apparent before we did any trials that the car park's utilisation was what we thought was very, very high and close to the maximum. And it's possible now that that maximum may be closer to 50% than 85%.
Well, Mr. Hodgetts is keen to answer that question.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So just to clarify, that is an average of the total occupancy rates of the car parking. So we do have car parking spaces in the CBD heading towards the 80% mark. And councillors will remember through the annual plan deliberations, I believe there was a recommendation, at least a comment in the report, that heading into the next LTP we'll be reviewing the occupancy rates of our car parking and adjusting the level of occupancy that we set ourselves. Now, what that adjustment will be, I'm not sure yet, because we will set an average adjustment rate. It won't be 85%, potentially it could be lower, but it certainly won't be 50%, I suspect. But it's a case of doing that work, understanding the data we have, and then putting in the next LTP an appropriate and an adjusted target for our car parking occupancy.
No further questions of the council officers. Is someone prepared to move?
I'll move.
Councillor Pearce. Councillor Allen. It is now open for debate, discussion. There being none, there is. Councillor Handley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not rising to talk about car parking, which may be pleasing to you all. But I thought it's worthwhile making some comments from a financial perspective, because I think we should be noting the improved financial position of council. This information and other financial information has come to the Finance Subcommittee, and we're fully familiar with it. But just a few points that signal something about our current financial position. As Councillor Dinehaven has raised, the full-year forecast is $3.7 million, essentially improved revenue. And if we look at page 28 of the balance sheet, there's an increase in investments by 55.6 million or 25%, and that reflects the improvement in the PIP, of course, which is a very, very healthy sign. And also on that page on the balance sheet, no increase in debt, it's still sitting at 113 million, or in fact it's fallen by 1% over the year, and over the year we've spent $21 million in capital expenditure. So I think again that's a very good sign of financial management. And finally, there's a initiative being followed by the Finance Subcommittee about the improvement of the capital carry forwards, and we're starting to see that, and we'll see more in the future. There'll be less unspent capital being carried forward in the future, and that's another good investment and a good initiative by the Council. So I think overall, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just think we should all note that the financial position is looking strong and in a very sound position. Thank you.
Councillor Chong.
Thank you. I'll have to disagree with that. The financial position, it may look like we've got a surplus of 3.7 million, but with our debt level up near $120 million, and the interest rates are the lowest they have been in 50 years, that I think the majority of the savings is just there. And so I don't class it, that's just luck. I don't class it as a strong financial position. It's just luck that the interest rates are that low, and that's what we're saving on the interest. They could be in the same position.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. Any further debate, discussion? There being none, I'm now going to put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? It is carried. Moving on to item A3, the Water New Zealand National Performance Review Report. Are there any questions of clarification? Councillor Allen has one. So we have Mr. Langford there to... thank you.
The average New Zealand rate of water usage is 270 litres per person per day. The benchmark is 119. In New Plymouth, our water usage is 315 litres per day. We're very wasteful of our water. What are we proposing to do about it?
Close down Tegel.
No, it's not Tegel. It's not Tegel.
Through you, Chair. We're in the process of developing a water supply master plan. Demand management is going to be a large feature in that report, and that'll be brought to the Council shortly.
That's great, thank you.
Supplementary question.
Councillor Dinehaven.
Two, if I may, Mr. Chairman. First, can I just target the words you used, Mr. Langford, management plan of water use? I presume that implies water meters.
Water meters is one of the technologies that are available to us. It will be an option that features in the water supply master plan.
Okay. Following from that, is there any plan to require new dwellings built to have storage tanks for rainwater and the like?
Currently, no.
Because it would seem to me that might be a useful way forward too. The second question I have is in relation to the percentage of our water use in our district that's for industrial purposes versus residential purposes. Do we have a breakdown of that at all?
We do. It's not information I can provide you. I can follow up and give
So I think it would be useful to know. We've got some pretty major water users like Tegel, for example, that use a huge amount of water.
Yes, they do, and we're currently in a program of rolling out water meters to all of our commercial customers. That program's got about 2 more years left to run, but the intention is all of our commercial customers will be on water meters, and it is important to note that all of those customers, yes, they use a high volume, but they also pay a much larger proportion for their water.
Yeah.
Councillor Allen, you had a supplementary question.
Supplementary to Councillor Dinehaven. If in fact we start putting water meters in and charging for the water usage, do you think this will encourage the use of water tanks and the like?
It may encourage the use of water tanks. What you have to bear in mind is the cost of actually purchasing water tanks and putting that in for the homeowner is quite high. And given the very low cost of our water, it's unlikely that they'll ever recover the cost of that investment over the life of them.
Thanks.
Councillor, I'll remind you, you're asking questions of clarification on the report, not asking council officers to put themselves on a spot. And so, are there any further questions of clarification on the report? Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question is about how much water gets into our wastewater system that is actually over and above what actually comes in the way of the clean water. So the difference between the water we put through our water treatment plant and what ends up in our wastewater, what's ingress?
Through you, Chair, we're not currently able to answer that. We don't have reliable enough data. Without metering all of our customers and knowing how much is actually consumed, we don't know what the balance that actually leaks out of our network. Without all of that information, we can't actually calculate an accurate inflow and infiltration rate.
Mr. Chairman?
Supplementary.
I was more interested in the amount of water that we produce and the amount of water we put through our waste treatment plant. How much extra do we put through our waste treatment plant that is actually, we're getting groundwater into our wastewater treatment?
As I said through you, Chair, we can't actually answer that because the amount of water that goes through our wastewater treatment plant is less than the amount of water that we produce. The reason for that is people use it to water their and other activities, so it doesn't go down the drain. Without knowing how much we actually leak from our network through water main breakages and all of the other factors that influence the amount of water we consume, we can't actually answer that question. We just don't have the data.
Thank you, Mr. Langford. There've been no further questions. Is someone prepared to move A3?
I'll move.
So moved.
Councillor Dinehaven, followed by seconded by Councillor Tamati. It is now open for debate, discussion. The only comment I would make is a follow-up to Councillor Allen's query. It shows that probably the New Plymouth District have taken water usage as a liberty, and it has been a very good commodity for us, but in future we actually are going to have to be more conservative and in the way we manage our water, so any move forward would be great. So with that, I'm now going to put A3. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, it is carried. Moving into item A4, which is delegated authority contracts. Mr. Langford.
Having a busy day.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Mr. Langford. I notice on several of these items that the estimated price and the budget price and the contract price, there's some real variations. For the first time, we are actually seeing our contract prices are higher. Would you like to comment? It's been a trend the other way for the last 12 months at least.
Through you, Chair. There are some specific reasons behind the variances. So the third contract down, the Lagoon 1 sludge removal, are based on historic rates we've received in the past. It is very rare we undertake this type of work, so actually finding reliable benchmark rates to base our estimates on is very difficult. We believe we underestimated that contract.
And the second item, in the LTP budget, we've got 11,669,000 in the budget. The estimated price was 1.4, the contract price was 1.3.
Question is?
Oh, the question is, why have we got 11 million in the budget?
So through you, Chair, this project is part of the Waitatari Phase 2 project, so this is one project of a package.
Thank you, I'm enlightened.
Any further questions of Mr. Langford? Councillor Dinehaven.
Thank you. Mr. Langford, the Infrastructure Professional Services Collaborative contract had an estimated price of 6.6 million and came in at 3.6, which is great. I see you had quite a range of prices for that. Does this illustrate that the engineering industry, the consulting industry, is really loss leading at the moment to keep its people here?
Through you, Chair, no, that's not a conclusion I draw. The new Infrastructure Professional Services contract is a new form of contract. It is quite different to anything we've tried before and a little bit new for New Zealand as well. It encourages a shared risk approach and a very collaborative way of working. What we've found is that 3 of those 4 tenderers provided prices that were very tightly clustered together, and very consistent. The fourth was an outlier who either perceived the risk of this contract much greater than it actually was, or just misunderstood what we were asking them to provide for us.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pearce has a supplementary.
Just the Colson Road landfill operation, LTP budget 1.2, estimated 3 and contract price 387. The difference?
Through you, Chair, this is another one where there are some specific reasons why the budget is lower than the estimate. The budget historic rates from the current operation of the landfill. Over recent years, we've found that the actual cost of running the landfill is much higher than budgeted for. The reasons for that are increased requirements around compliance, particularly around applying the daily cover, dealing with the odour issues that we've experienced down there as well. So it is also as a result of the landfill entering a new phase in its life cycle. We're approaching the closure of the landfill and the requirement for additional capital works to actually apply the final cover and decommission the site are much more intensive.
We have to watch our budget.
Yes.
Okay.
No further questions of Mr Langford. Someone prepared to move item A4?
I'll move.
Councillor Pearce.
Every second.
Councillor Besic, welcome along. Now open for debate, discussion. There appears to be none. I'm now going to put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? It is carried. Moving into item A5 on the agenda, which is the Investor Save project approved. Are there any questions of clarification? Councillor Chong.
I may be missing something here, not reading it right. It actually says payback, this is on page 2, payback for the investment, 2.9 years, with a rate of return of 12.52. If it was a payback of 8 years, it would be a return of 12.52. It should be 30 in the 30% mark there, or have I read it wrong?
Well done,
2.9
Charlie.
years. We're returning
Have I read it wrong?
Through you, Mr Chair, I think the payback is based on the fact that we have budget funding in the LTP, which is not included in the payback calculation. The internal rate of return is the internal rate of return across the whole project, which excludes the renewals, which is why you've got that difference.
Okay. Yeah. So the payback is not 2.9 years? It's more like 8?
The payback of 2.9 years is based on the fact that we already have money budgeted in the renewals and we need to raise the debt funding of 135 to pay for the total cost of the RFI.
Okay, that's right.
Any further questions? There appears to be none. Is someone prepared to move item A5? Councillor Allen.
I'll second.
Councillor Pearce has seconded. It is now open for debate and discussion. There appears to be none. I will now put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? It is carried. Moving on to item A6, the unauthorised sewage discharges report. Mr Langford, I probably suggest you come forward.
It could be a question or two.
I would invite Mr Langford to give us a brief summary, if you like, on the report, and then I'll allow any questions of clarification of the report. So, Mr Langford.
Through you, Chair, this report's been undertaken in response to the 3 overflow incidents that we had during February and March. The conclusions of the report really highlight that these incidents were isolated, they are unrelated to each other, and that there appears to be no fundamental flaws with our sewage system. The report has also reviewed and compared the sewage system from White and New Plymouth with that of other communities, and there's been no disparity found between either the quality or the value of the work that's been done. No evidence of poor workmanship or evidence of cheap or low-grade materials being used to cut costs.
Now, questions of clarification. I'm sure there'll be a few. Councillor Dienhoven.
Thank you. First, Mr Langford, can I congratulate you on this report? It is the best engineering report I've seen in my contact with the council over the last few years. Or the incident 3, which was the unfortunately named uninterruptible power supply being interrupted. It does seem that there was a fairly major failure in the monitoring of that system, given that it was operating off the UPS, and a staff member actually went and checked it out, or a contractor went and checked it out and observed that. Has this matter been sorted to your satisfaction as engineering boss?
Through you, Chair, yes, it has. The circumstance that led to the uninterruptible power supply operating were quite unique. The system is normally designed to deal with a failure in the mains power supply. In those circumstances, it would be very obvious that the power was cut and that we were operating on the backup system. In this particular case, one of the circuit breakers had tripped, which cut the power only to the control unit, and as a result, the pump station appeared to be operating completely normally at the time. Since that incident, we have alarms, so regardless of the circumstances around the uninterruptible power supply operating, we will be, our duty operators will be paged and notified that that is occurring. That is something that is not normally industry standard and is something that's above what would normally be expected from a backup system, but we've put it in place recognising that this situation's occurred. It's plausible it could occur again, so we should be prepared for it.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Supplementary.
In talking about the alarms which go out to staff who are remotely monitoring the plant, you've made the point in the report that as often as frequently as every half hour there can be a signal going out to a staff member. Presumably we've got some hierarchy in place now that something needs to be attended to right now or can wait. Could you describe to us how that works?
Yes, through you, Chad. That system is was already in existence at the time of these incidents. So all of by our SCADA system are recorded and logged in the system. Ones that are low priority, that are not going to result in an immediate overflow or a serious failure, are just logged in the system. The duty operators have a routine of regularly checking SCADA, clearing out the alarms and dealing with the issues. High priority alarms that are likely to result in a serious incident are, as well as being logged in SCADA, paged and text message notified to the duty operator. If the duty operator doesn't respond within a set time frame, then an additional alarm is sent to a backup security system.
I have Councillor Besic and followed by Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, unlike Councillor Dijnhoven, I'm not an engineer, so I didn't smile when I read this. Had to read it 3 or 4 times. But so put it in layman's terms, there's been no inferior parts that have been used on the pipeline as there seems to be talked about in the public that has been replaced systematically since its inception. That's basically what the report's saying. That's correct, eh?
Through you, Chair, yes, we found no evidence that either the pipes, the gasket themselves were of inferior quality or that there had been any issues with the workmanship during the construction of the pipeline, the pipe bridge, or anything to do with the sewerage lines.
And second last question, that over this report, it talks about the 3 incidences and the timing of those. There's been no other discharges into the Waitara River from our network other than those 3, so the ones that have been reported in the paper and talked about locally just is not true?
Through you, Chair, there's these 3 incidents that occurred during February and March. There was an additional overflow from the Richmond Street pump station that was also reported. That was due to localised flooding following heavy rain. Those are the only incidents that we've experienced.
So supplementary, so the talk of like the smell at the river mouth and things like that, there's no explanation for that?
Through you, Chair, we believe that the smells that the community reported to us were as a result of us doing planned maintenance work to the pump station. One of the recommendations of this report is that we installed an additional pump at the marine outfall. In order to do that, we had to dewater it. Sorry, correction, it was at the transfer pump station, not the outfall one. We had to empty the wet well. The process of doing that does produce quite a strong odour, but there was no discharge of sewage as a result of that work.
Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Yes, I would like to congratulate you on the report, and I particularly liked your reply on to Councillor Dijnhoven on the alarm system. It was good. I understand you're getting an independent report on the gasket in the pipeline.
Through you, Chair, yes, that's correct. Whilst I've undertaken this report, I've been very careful to remain within my engineering field of competence and not to overstep that. As a result, I've sought specialist advice on the specification of the gasket just to confirm that there's no deficiencies in its design. At this stage, I've got no reason to suspect there are, but I'm just being thorough.
Thank you.
There's been no further questions of Mr. Langford, but Mr. Langford, again, I just reiterate the report was a very, very good report. We certainly waited with bated breath to read this because there has been so much speculation and talk amongst the community as to the failures of our of unsatisfactory plant. But your report certainly highlights that these appeared to be 3 separate incidents that has happened in a short time. So, again, not being an engineer. It took a little bit of reading and to try and get a layman's terms around that, but well done on this report, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillors, someone prepared to move A6? Councillor Dijnhoven. Councillor Besick. It is now open for debate, discussion. Councillor Besick.
Quick comment. I do agree with actually Councillor Dijnhoven that this is a really good report, even though I'm not an engineer. I know the engineers around the table probably drawled and absolutely loved reading it, but like you, Mr. Chair, it took me sort of 3 or 4 times to read it to make sure I understood what I was reading. But it was one of those reports that actually did cover all those aspects, even though I wanted those questions answered in plain English. And I think, through you, Mr. Chair, that Mr. Langford has done a great report, and where the community is well served having someone like Mr. Langford overseeing our facilities.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with Councillor Besick, but I'd also like to commend the staff and Mr. Langford on the public relations exercise you did by taking those particularly concerned people from the Waitara community, the community board, and some of the others have been very concerned about the condition of the outflow. That was a really good public relations exercise, and I think it stood the council in good light and also supplied a lot of information that was otherwise only guesswork. So thank you very much on behalf of the council.
Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Dijnhoven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, we're supposed to be standing for these, aren't we?
Not on.
No. Okay. The report, I think, as has been said, is very good, but I also want to congratulate Mr. Langford on the Live magazine article, which was a very wide-ranging article about our sewage system's perceived woes, and the way you in layman's terms, very well answered all the points put to you. I think you and your staff have done a great job through this, what must have been a very trying and difficult period with a relatively new plant giving unexpected problems. Can I say that we are vastly better off in the Waitara area in terms of sewage and the treatment of it and the disposal of it through the wastewater treatment plant at Waiwakaio than we ever were with a pipeline pumping it out to sea, which was an improvement over what was there prior to that. Having been involved in both of those projects, I'm delighted that we went ahead earlier, remembering, of course, that the original plan was to not have even started this project yet. As it was scheduled originally, we'd be just beginning the construction about now. So I think the council can look back with a bit of pride that even though there have been a few teething problems, that we actually have got this project up and going long ahead of schedule, and to most part very satisfactorily and cost effectively. Comparison with the highway link between New Plymouth and Waitara might be perhaps not wise at this point. Can I say though that the public do expect there to be faultless performance, and nobody knew about the two failures on the Owakura sewage pipeline, the two gasket failures there or joint failures there, because they didn't become a media event, even though one of them was right alongside the main highway, and in fact was perfectly obvious when you drove by, but it didn't for whatever reason become a media event. So I think there is perhaps times when the council is unfairly criticised, but I think our staff and the contractors who work for us have done a great job in getting this contained and fixed as quickly as possible given the circumstances, and attempting to avoid future failures. So well done.
Councillor Handley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I accept the comments that have been made about the quality of the report. It's the service here that we're really discussing, and we'd have to say that the service has not met the quality standards that we would expect as a council, and that the recent sewage leakages have undermined the confidence of, well, particularly Waitara, but others as well. And I know Mr. Langford has his eye very firmly on the future, because the service cannot continue to show these weaknesses. And so while I regard the report as being very useful and very helpful and very comprehensive, nevertheless we've got to keep our eye on the service and make sure that that is as high a quality as the report.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's something here, the difference between reality and perception. The reality is that we have a very widespread and efficient infrastructure for wastewater that works extremely well. The perception is that because there were 3 minor breakdowns in that system in a short space of time, that it didn't operate very well. So I would remind you that while it may be perceived that there is something wrong, the reality is that our infrastructure is excellent. We should continue to look after our infrastructure and improve it, but the reality is that it is extremely good. Do not get carried away with perception.
There appears to be no speakers against A6, so I now intend to put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, it is carried. Moving on to A7, the surrender of lease over Holiday Cottage Site 17.
So moved.
So moved.
Seconded.
I guess no one had any questions of council officers, so maybe we were a little bit preempt. Councillor Besick has a question. Did I see Mr. Hancock there? Thank you, Peter. Councillor Besick.
I'm not too sure if Mr. Hancock can help, but I was out there last weekend. The wall or the place where this is and the grounds come in, looking at where it is, another sort of flood would, because the retaining wall, the flood protection's been taken away. Is there any chance that any other batch may be under threat with that removal, or is it going to be replaced or another wall put in?
Through the Chair, construction's still occurring, and it's been TRC supervising it. All the existing structures all going to be removed and tidied up. At this stage, we're not proposing any further river protection work. It's going to be a sort of wait and see. There's also some trees that need to be removed on the other side of the river as well. So it's just really clean it up and just monitor it at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. We met there yesterday, and it was a good meeting. So just to reassure the council, my question is, with the rates and the lease that is due to the leasee of this site number 17. We're recommending that we are paying that out. Is that just, have we come across this before? Have we had to pay out a leasee from rates that were due? Could you just comment on that?
Yeah,
this is the final
that's
stage
true.
in all of this.
Yeah, the report covers it's been since the event happened. Pretty much the rent and the rates have been stopped at that point. Yeah, so it's because it couldn't be occupied.
Okay, so we're going to.
Yeah, we'll incur a loss since the date of the flood.
Councillor Chong.
Yeah, g'day. I'm guessing that they're, you know, exiting the lease because of the flood protection and the damage and the possible problems. With the what's that?
No house.
Section's gone.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. So my question is, if that's the case, we're obviously losing revenue because we haven't got that land and the building on it. With the sea level rising, how many more could this happen to, and how many millions would we lose in the future if we're just stopping these leases through
Councillor
sea
Chong,
level
you're
rise?
asking a question of Mr Hancock that he's probably not experienced enough to tell and forecast how many more sections we're going to lose. So I think we need to stick to the item that's on the agenda and deal with them. If there are further properties that do come to the attention of the council, we probably need to address those need by need. But Mr Hancock is probably to be asking questions on sea level rises and projected scenarios that could happen. So
Yes, I just thought I'd mention it because you know, it is a big cost that we need to consider, and that's a loss of revenue for the council.
So with that, we have no further questions of Mr Hancock. It's been moved and seconded for debate and discussion. Perhaps Councillor Chong, you may wish to further your comments in the debate and discussion section if that's what you wish. But is there any?
I'll just make my comment, Mr Chairman.
Councillor
We
Pearce.
met here yesterday and we met on site for a couple of reasons, but this was one of them. And this is the sad conclusion for the leasees of batch number 17. It will be just tidied up and left now as reserve, as it states here, and it was pretty much tidied up yesterday. There was very little to do on that site, and I'm sure once the council view it finally and sign it off, it will be the end of site number 17 and it cannot be built there again. So yeah, sadly will be one site less at Oneira Bay.
So
yeah, I will discuss. Is it open for debate discussion now? Yeah. That's my point. If I mean, obviously, if there's no use, they can exit the lease. However, in some areas we are looking at protecting these places with seawalls, and I think that's a very short answer, because in another 20 years you're going to have this problem, and not only are you going to have this problem, you've wasted that money over a short 15 to 20 year period. You're also going to lose the revenue from that. So we pour money into something that ultimately we're going to lose revenue from. So we need to consider that about seawalls in these areas, because hopefully we don't sort of pay twice and lose revenue.
Councillor Allen.
I'd just like to support Councillor Chong on what he's said. We've only got to see what's been happening in Sydney, the storm. It's not just sea level rise, it's important. It's the surge, the storm surge, which really gets people. And it's an ongoing problem which we need to address.
Councillor Jordan.
Small point, Mr Chairman, but I would point out that this is a riverside property. It's got nothing to do with the sea.
It has. Same thing.
Yep. With that, there'll be no further debate discussion. I'm now going to put that to the vote. All those in favour of A7, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, it is carried. Moving into item A8, the update on the earthquake strengthening concurrent work plan for the Civic Centre. And ask Miss Betty, would you like to come forward and perhaps give us an update of where we are before I open up for questions of you?
Through the Chair, this report tables concurrent works that have been overdue for action for some years: earthquake strengthening, energy optimisation and open spacing of the first floor. The works are sequenced to be scheduled concurrently so that we have efficiency gains in terms of the contract management.
There you go, councillors. Any questions? Councillor Handley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bailey, the cost of item 3, the open spacing level 1 of the civic centre, if my addition is correct, is about 1.1 million, and it's said the budget is spread over 3 years. So sort of two questions. Is the work being spread over 3 years? And secondly, is the budget adequate?
Through the Chair, the work will be sequenced over a period from August through till March. That's the estimate at this stage. And we have funding which we'll be bringing from the LTP. We are bringing forward so that we can, within the budget, that will be spent to cover those costs.
Supplementary, Mr. Chair, could we have a further explanation about what budget is being brought forward from a long-term plan to cover those costs?
Renewals funding that is available through the renewals budget for the earthquake, for the open spacing works. Are you specifically referring to the open space 645?
So, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we have been setting aside depreciation to fund renewals in the Civic Centre for several years. Now, 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, the basement floor, lower ground floor and ground floor were all open space, but for various reasons, the first floor was never completed. And so we're trying to bring the first floor up to the same standard as the other floors in the building, and at the same time create some efficiencies by bringing staff who are currently housed in the second floor back down to the first floor, so we have space we can lease. So what we're saying is we're managing the budget over more than 1 year. It's provided for in the LTP, but one of the reasons I requested this report is that I wanted you to understand that we are rolling together 3 separate projects into one tender to maximise the efficiencies of the contract management, and I don't want it to be a surprise for you to see all of that work happening. But clearly, while we're undertaking the earthquake strengthening and requiring staff to move out of their area so we can do that, it's the absolute perfect time to do the other work there.
Councillor Allen.
Yeah, the energy optimisation project, which I fully support, but this is not, can you just confirm for me, this is not just a way of hiding getting money by alternative means?
The energy optimisation report is specifically to do with LED lighting and the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. When you open plan the building, as Councillor Allen would know, when you open plan a space, it's easier to heat and control. At the moment the system's fighting each other. We believe there will be considerable savings in air conditioning cost, or the cost of energy to heat and cool the building, and also LED lighting. We want to lead the way in terms of having more efficient LED lighting. We'll be lifting tiles getting into the roof space so it'll be more acoustically soundproofed, and a better environment overall for our staff.
Supplementary?
As long as it's not an alleged conspiracy theory allegation.
So these energy saving projects would not have been done in the normal budget?
It's an ideal time to do it. We have had plans to do heating and ventilation. Heating and ventilation has been a bugbear in that area for quite some time, so it is the ideal time to do it while we've got the ceiling open and the earthquake strengthening happening.
Great, thank you.
The Civic Centre.
Any further questions? Councillor Besic, or are you just tapping your chin? There being no further questions, would someone like to move?
I'll move.
Councillor Pearce. Councillor Tamati. It is open for debate discussion.
Aye.
There being none, I now intend to put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, it is carried. And before I close the meeting, I compliment the council officers on the reports right throughout this agenda. I'd like to think that it's part of the CE's strategy to realignment. The quality of the reports is very good, has been spoken throughout the meeting, so it makes the running of a meeting, and it's very technical at times, rather easy. So compliments for all the council staff, well done. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I close the meeting. Thank you all.